Okay, probably one of the Hoyas that has the absolute most amazing fragrance is Calicina Stargazer. It's the perfume is so strong and sweet that just a few blossoms can perfume an entire room. So that's probably my favorite. I sometimes I have difficulty growing the plant, and I probably wouldn't even still have it around if it wasn't for the fragrance of those blooms. Hoya McGillray has a tropical fragrance that nothing else really compares to it. It's been said that it smells a lot like gardenias, but of that whole McGillray complex, that one without a doubt has the best fragrance, the strongest fragrance. It's magical. So that's another one. Divuensis, I was very surprised. These pink bell-shaped flowers. I didn't have any idea that they were going to smell strongly of caramel. So that smells really nice too. It's not like overpowering caramel, but when you get near it, you can smell it. It's quite strong. Griffithii, very, very sweet, very intense, sweet smell. Some of the Tissolata, they can smell very sweet too. I've got a number of them right now that are starting to bud up just on the windowsills. And when they bloom, it's very sweet and it smells great. Probably the stinkiest, if one had to be the stinkiest Hoya smell for a flower, Oblong Acutifolia. It used to be called Hoya graveolens. It probably has the worst fragrance that I have smelled, but I keep it around. I still have the plant because I just like the flowers. And sometimes you keep it around for that, but that would be the stinkiest flower.
Can I ask, what does it smell like when you say stinkiest? I'm just curious. I cannot imagine like a stinky Hoya flower.
You can't really talk about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't really say what it smells like here. I mean, you have to look it up on the internet, but it does smell exactly like that.
Okay.
That's all I can say here.
Thank you. I'll look that up. I'm extra curious.
90% of the Hoyas will bloom the same way. You just give it the best environment that you possibly can. If you give it good light, reasonable temperatures, fairly good humidity, it'll bloom for you, usually within the first year. 10% of the Hoyas, they require some kind of a trigger to get them to bloom. Mm-hmm. And finding that trigger can be really difficult sometimes. And some of the triggers are either increasing day length, like when your days get longer right now during the spring. Mm-hmm. When you keep them under constant grow light cycles, they don't get that. So they can literally sit there for years, and that trigger won't come along to make them want to bloom. And some of them require decreasing day length in order to flower. So those are two big triggers. And sometimes a change in temperature is needed, but finding that is difficult. But 90% of the Hoyas will flower. All they want to really do is flower. It's hard to stop them from flowering. Probably the trickiest Hoya I had to flower was also the one that I was the proudest of was Hoya imbricata. It took me quite a long time to figure it out. I had to create the perfect biome for it. I took a large piece of aquarium driftwood. That was a hobby I had before I took up the plant hobby. I was in the tropical fish for 15 years. I bred rainbow fishes from Australia and New Guinea. So the plants actually come from the same place. But so I took this piece of driftwood and I put it had living sphagnum moss, ferns, grasses, other Hoyas, and I put that imbricata in there and kept it under like almost 100% humidity and a grow light. And when that thing finally started to bud up, it was just so exciting. And then it flowered, and it had an amazing scent. So that one was probably the trickiest one. Hoyas I bloom many Hoyas just from taking a cutting and rooting it. I have a couple of little examples you can see here. This this Hoya species, frogfoot, I only rooted this thing about, I don't think it's been 6 weeks, and you can see the peduncle full of buds here. So it really doesn't have to be very long. And here's a Hoya divuensis that just barely rooted. I only took these cuttings maybe, I don't know, I don't think it's been a month. And you can see that it has a bud.
Wow. Already.
Already. So many times you can flower a Hoya right from a cutting. Yeah, the vast majority of Hoyas should flower by the time they're 1 years old. That is painful, and it happens to the best of us. And I mean, I still feel badly when that happens. It doesn't happen to me as much as it used to. It just happened though a few weeks ago. I had a Hoya that was getting was going to flower for the first time, and it started to put out buds, and I got excited. It was called species Rindu rafflesia, something like that. A nice little Hoya, but yeah, so the bud's blasted. So it happens to the best of us. I think it's mostly caused from a mistake in watering. Every bud blast is a mistake in water. You watered it when you shouldn't have, or you didn't water it enough. It's a break in the watering routine. Whatever you do, you've got to stick to a routine. No matter what happens in my life, I never break with routine. Blast. And don't move your plant around, when it's budding up. Yeah, that doesn't help you either. I've done all kinds of things. I even made a video about it. I clip little clear cups, the same kind of cups that I start plants in. I clip them underneath and the flowers using like a little hair clip to catch the drips. Sometimes if it's big flowers like Imperialis is one of the worst ones for that. The first couple days, they don't really drip much nectar, but after that they begin to really drip. And I've had bags that the bottom will just be all full of clear liquid nectar, which would be dripping all over everything if you allowed that to happen. So I will bag them, which looks crappy. And what's the point of having flowers if they're in a bag? But you just can't have that in a regular house. It's just it makes too much of a mess. If it's outside, it's fine. I've heard from people. I can't really speak to it because I don't have those kind of conditions, but some people claim that if they have really dry conditions in the house, or they grow these things in the Southwest or something, that some of the Hoyas that I have real problems with dripping nectar, they don't drip nectar for them. So it could have to do with the higher humidity too that creates so many drippy Hoyas for me. There's some Hoyas that they almost seem to bloom so much that they almost bloom themselves to death. I don't know if it's in their nature. They produce so many flowers. There'll be more flowers than leaves sometimes. And they never go out of flower. They flower like continuously. I found that to be that way with Hoya megalaster and Hoya divuensis. They just flower continuously. Platycollis, Amarita, they also flower continually. They're never out of butterflower, and I think sometimes it can harm the plant. I treat all my Hoyas the same way. I'm using coconut husk as my primary substrate. The thin leaf Hoyas, sometimes they can dry out a little sooner, so sometimes I'm forced to water those a couple times a week, but I haven't changed over too much. It's pretty much coconut husk for me.
So you mentioned a little bit about cocoa husk chips, that it's the main ingredients you use. Like what's go into them? Like what do you think the advantages to that substrate that you make over the other? For example, a lot of us, or at least myself, I grow some of my Hoyas in semi-hydro. So what do you think the benefits of what you're using over some other method or some other substrate?
Okay, first of all, I want to talk about how I grew Hoyas for about 15 years. They were mostly grown in a peat-based soil, probably about 50% peat, 25% fine orchid bark, 25% perlite. That was primarily it. Sometimes I'd throw in some other little extras, and that worked for me pretty well. But I've always suffered with a lot of root rot. And it really, the root rot, after I moved to this house about 10 years ago, the root rot seemed to get out of control for me. I'm a compulsive overwaterer. I have grown semi-hydro. Actually, I made it one of the first videos on growing Hoyas and semi-hydro. And I was pretty successful for it, and I was a proponent of it. I was going in LECA. But I had an extremely warm plant room. I mean, very warm, where the nighttime temperatures would never fall below 80, and it would get up close to 90 during the day. I didn't suffer with root rot, and I could grow things pretty darn well in passive hydro or with LECA in those conditions. But in these conditions, which are much cooler, I suffered with so much root rot that I would never grow that way again. I've tried in my life I've tried every substrate known to man. I've tried the turfus substrate. I've tried pond. I have a giant 25-liter thing of pond that I can't ship it to anybody, but I'll never use it. I've tried everything. And someone here in Vermont actually convinced me to try coconut husk chips. This woman is no longer in the hobby because root mealies defeated her. But anyway, she started me using coconut husk chips. And after I started using those, my root rot problems started to fall away. So now I have very little root rot. It still occasionally happens, but almost not at all. Whereas before, it was just like continuous. You just get so sick of it after a while. So I switched to mostly coconut husk chips, and I'll throw a little bit of large perlite in there, maybe 5%, but it's mostly coconut husk chips.
Okay. So it sounds like the ingredients is 5 to 10% larger perlite and then cocoa husk chips. The rest is cocoa husk chips.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
and they're not they're fairly large chunks of coconut husk chips too. I use a certain brand called Grow It, and I've been using the same brand. I don't have any problems with it. They're pretty large pieces of coconut husk. I don't even know why things like to grow in it so much, but they do.
Other than substrate, we know that there's tons of other stuff that go into growing Hoya successfully. For example, like the pots, the trellises, like the watering system, the lighting, etc., etc. So can you go over a couple of those, like Doug, like what setup are you currently using?
I will. For lighting now, I've switched over. When I first got into the hobby, it was all T5 fluorescents, and I used those for years. Finally, I think about 6 months ago, I got rid of the last of my T5 fluorescent grow lights. So it's all LED now. I currently use Spider Farmer LED lights, and I have a lot. I have a lot of them. I actually have two right here on these plants in the background. This is a little alcove. I'm sitting in my dining room, and there's no light that comes in through these windows. That it would be pretty much in the dark. So I do hang two of those lights over the plant. So that's what I use for lighting. I have a system that works so great for me. I don't know why it wouldn't work for everyone. I grow Hoyas very quickly, very large. You can see I don't have many small Hoyas because they grow so quickly. So I'm hoping that you learn some things from me that you can utilize. I got a couple of demonstrations. I trellis all of my Hoyas now with it's this. I don't know if you can see this. It's 14 gauge galvanized fencing, and the openings are 2 inches by 4 inches. These come in a lot of rolls of different heights and lengths. I think the most useful is probably the 4 foot high by 50 foot long. If you get one of those rolls, you can have enough trellising probably for the rest of your life, unless you're like me. who has way too many Hoyas.
Someone's like,
But you'll make an awful lot of trellises out of a 50-foot roll of wire. I used to use this vinyl coated wire. It had a smaller, this was 16 gauge and it had a smaller openings in here, but it's the drawbacks to this is the holes aren't big enough to, you can see here, I'll show you what I do. You can see this right here. I take this 16 gauge wire and I'll just bend it up. This is for like a hanging plant, and you can put a fairly large size pot in here and you can use it as a hanging pot, or you can use it to just sit on the windowsill. So I do that for small plants, and I always have a cash pot because it stops it from turning green. So there you go. So anyway, the vinyl coated wire, the holes, you can't make them quite big enough. And the vinyl, I find in high humidity environments, get covered with mold. If you've grown in grow tents for as long as I have, like electrical cords, all of that kind of stuff, it's covered in mold. There's something about plastic or vinyl that gets covered in mold. So I don't use it anymore. So just the plain metal, it doesn't really rust, and it lasts forever. You can see this, every Hoya, every pot, the trellis gets wired in to the pot. That way, the method that I use, it's so much easier. You don't have to worry about the trellis coming out. You just yank the pot out. I use terracotta cash pots because it stops the light from getting to it, so the substrate doesn't turn green. It allows just the right amount of breathability. If you use this without the terracotta pot, it almost dries out too quickly. But with the terracotta pot, with this sitting in the terracotta pot, it just the right amount of breathability. So it does exceptionally well. And the final reason I put it in a terracotta pot is it stops it from falling over, because this is so heavy. It's so easy to tip these things over if they're just in the plastic pot. So, and then I use the flood and drain method of growing my Hoyas. Every time I water, because coconut husk chips, you can't pour water because it just pours right through it. So it has to be soaked. So you just yank these things out. I do it once a week, take the plant, and then I put it in either a bucket. Ideally, you find containers that are about the same size as your pot, and you just set it in there, pour your water in. It comes up to the top, so it's covering all of the coconut husk. I leave it for 15 to 30 seconds till it saturates it, and then I pull it out. If something is really dry, I'll leave it for 15, 20 minutes to let it really soak up. I've never seen any harm. I've even forgotten these things occasionally overnight, which makes me feel horrible. I think, oh, I've killed the plant. I pull it out, and the plant, it never suffered any setbacks. Another thing I do, sometimes the coconut husk will get very dry and it'll want to float up on you. So I have this cast iron weight, and I will set it right on top of the plant, and it holds it down while it's doing its soaking, because sometimes it'll want to tip over on you. When I tore apart all my T5 fluorescent lights, I found a number of these cast iron weights in there. They put them in there to offset the imbalance in the thing, so they were very handy. So now I have these things. I use them for all kinds of stuff. But that's really my system of growing Hoyas, and it works really well. You'll see when we go on the Hoya tour that I don't really have any small Hoyas because they grow so fast this way. I will say it's labor intensive. You can't just pour water into the plant in the back corner. You actually have to pull that plant out and look at it and soak it, drain it, and put it back. So it takes me 3 times as much time to water as it did in the past. I have to say that I was really blessed as far as pests for like most of my Hoya keeping life. First 15 years, I had a few spider mites. I had a few aphids, but I never had a mealybug infestation, and I got root mealies, and it was the worst thing I ever dealt with. I thought I was going to have to give up keeping Hoyas because everything I tried just failed with them. They were the worst things I've ever seen. I mean, it's not that the plants were doing so poorly with them. Sometimes they still look fantastic on top, but you just couldn't stand looking at every time you'd pull the pot out to water it, it'd be all covered with white cottony stuff here. And then when you would put it in the water and you pull it out, all of their waxy exoskeletons will be floating on top of the water. It's just like, it's disgusting. So I thought I was going to have to give it up. But Adam from Let's Talk Hoya, he did a video and they, when I did their podcast, and they told me about Pure Crop One, and I started using that as a drench, and it took care of my root mealy problem. I used it for 3 months every single time I watered, which is easy, which is also easy with my system, because if you're using soil or something else, I don't know how it would work, but when you're using coconut husk and you have to drench it every week anyway by dropping it in a bucket, it's easy to apply something like that. So I did that every month for 3 months. I completely disappeared. So I finally said, well, I'm free of them. I'm going to stop using it. And I went 2 months without using it at all. And I discovered them in 2 plants again, pretty badly. So it's like, are you kidding me? So I went back and I started using Pure Crop One again. They once again, the root mealies completely disappeared, and I used it again for about 3 months. Now I've recently started using it once a month. The other thing I use for pesticides now is sulfur. If I suspect a plant is having some kind of mite issue or some kind of something looks kind of stunted or not really right with the leaves, I've never actually been able to spot, even with those little handheld microscopes, those flat mites that they talk about. I know they're out there. I know they exist. I know they do damage because I sprayed my entire collection with sulfur, and the growth after I did that was phenomenal. They all took off and started growing like crazy. But now I use that sulfur sort of as a spot treatment if there's a problem, if there's a plant that I think has a problem. And those are the only 2 things that I use for. That comes from the Let's Talk Hoya podcast that I did about a year ago. And I told them the story about before there was a market for Hoyas and you just didn't know what to do with them. And they grew so fast for me. Sometimes I just get huge plants, and I lived on a river. So I would just, take a plant, I take a few cuttings, and what was left, that giant plant, you didn't know what to do with. So I threw it in a river, just float away. So I don't live on a river anymore. So, but metaphorically, the last plant I threw in a river would be probably Hoya stenophila. It just got too big. It was 4 feet tall. It had hundreds of flowers on it, which are probably the most unimpressive Hoya flower there ever was. But I couldn't keep it watered enough. It was in a 10-inch pot. Even dunking it twice a week, it wasn't enough for it, and I got sick of it. So that plant metaphorically went down the river. I did take some cuttings, and I started a couple hanging baskets with them. Well, when I first started out with Hoyas, they were very inexpensive. That would be a big change the way they are now. I mean, a really expensive Hoya cutting 20 years ago, we used to get them from the little nursery in Australia. We would do group orders and order from them. A really expensive Hoya would have been about $16 for a cutting, when most of them averaged about $8. And I mean, these are really exotic things. I mean, really, but the prices are considerably higher than that now. Also, in that time, I started thinking, what else was different? There was barely any variegated Hoyas. There might have been the 2 variegated Hoya Bellas, the inner and the outer variegated, but I can't really think of anything else. So that's exploded since that time because they can make a lot of money with that. They do all kinds of genetic engineering to come up with that. These variegated Hoyas and hybridization of Hoyas now has just gone through the roof. There's so many people now pollinating their Hoyas and crossing Hoyas and coming up with all these different things. That really had just barely got started. There was only a couple people in the world that had ever even done it when I started in the Hoya hobby, and now like so many people are doing it. So that's a big. And what keeps me interested in the hobby, I mean, I still get a huge thrill out of flowering that Hoya for the first time. And it just that's what keeps me doing it. It's just it's just really fun. It's like a high. It's my high. Getting that Hoya to flower for the first time. That's why I keep doing it. I, quite frankly, do not have the patience for it. I fooled around with it a little bit. It is not an easy thing to do. It has to be done under high magnification. You have to have magnifiers on your glasses, and it's so exacting. I've tried to pollinate a number of Hoyas, just pollinating themselves, let alone cross pollinating them, and I've never been successful. Pollinations that took place, they were like just like miracles through, nothing I had anything to do with at all. Hoya, Hoya serpens, and I've had seed pods on a number of Hoyas, and I've grown out seeds, but it was always done by some kind of flying insect or something. I've had cats in the past that were very interested in chewing on thin-leafed Hoyas, and then sometimes they would throw them up. You would see little bits of leaves and stuff in there. But those cats, they passed away now, not because of the Hoyas. It was just their time. But sometimes you get really upset. Our cats are older now, but young cats can just like all of a sudden go on these, just racing things, and they've knocked Hoyas off of. Sometimes there's nothing worse than being sleeping in the middle of the night and hearing this hard noise, this big noise on the floor, a big dropping noise, and you go out there and your prized Hoya is laying on the floor with all of its dirt all over the floor, and you have to clean that up. So they have knocked some Hoyas off the windowsills. I root it in the same substrate that I grow into. I root things on a heat mat in clear, like they're the clear storage containers. Sterilite makes them, and I put a bunch of holes in the top, and I put a grid in the bottom and water in there, so it's like 100% humidity, and the temperature in there is like 82, and I can root 99% of my Hoyas. 99% of everything roots, even things like undulata and platycollis and other difficult to root Hoyas. They're not even difficult in that. They root so fast. I mean, this came out of there. This frogfoot. So you can see some of the plants. These are 8x8 grow tents. It's very cool down here in the basement now, much cooler than it ever was before because of the change of the lights. They don't throw off that much heat anymore. And heating and ventilating changes we made it much cooler down here. So at night it goes down to about 55 degrees in these tents, and in the daytime it might hit around 72. I'll show you a few of the plants. This thing here looks like Cousin It. It's about 3 feet tall. It's Eves rocherii. It was a very difficult plant for me to get started and grow. It used to have like little leaves. It used to turn yellow and fall off all the time. And then once it took, it's just really, really did well. And it gets a little, probably a 3/4 inch pink flower. These are the cuttings I was able to save, and there's one of the hanging baskets. It's crawling all over the place. Here's a couple of buds you can see on the plant. It's probably the buds are probably more handsome than the flowers. The flowers never totally open up. Let's see. Here's a Hoya imperialis. You can see the buds. Good sized buds. What's extra special about it? I have 2 imperialises. You'll see one in the other tent that the flowers just opened just in a couple days ago. These plants are only about 8 months old from a cutting. So you can see my system works. I've never flowered one that quick before. I think the quickest I ever flowered one before was like 14 months. But this one here, these two, 8 months. This is Hoya tenensis. This might fall into the category of one of those plants that will flower itself to death. It's covered in blooms right now. There's probably 75 flowers on here. Here's my 3-foot tall insularis. I think this makes like this incredible Christmas plant. I don't know. It just makes me think of Christmas because it has all these cute little red Christmas decorations on it. You know, it's just like covered in it. And the plant is just so happy. It's hard to overstate its happiness. I can communicate with these plants. And I think that's why they flower for me. This is Hoya acicularis. Probably one of the biggest ones in the world. It's the coconut husk, I'm telling you. This is Hoya patella. Hoya patella I've had around for maybe at least 15 years. Not the same plant. I've started over, 20 times, but usually it's covered in flowers. So there's only a few on there right now, but it's very happy. This is Hoya stenoki. It's so big that you can't really, it's 4 feet tall in a 10-inch pot. This is going on 3 years old. It'll be 3 years old this summer. I got it in 2022 as a cutting from Indonesia. Unfortunately, the flowers are on the way out, but I have a whole bunch of buds coming. So the thing is literally going to be in flower for quite a long time. This was fully in flower and the leaves on these things, they're pubescent. So it's in that McGillivray complex, but the leaves are pubescent on this one. Now this is another stenoki, but the leaves are glabrous. And this thing has been flowering now for weeks. The flowers, I just lost them, but there's a bunch of buds here, and there's another set of buds on the back. So it's going to flower again. It's been flowering for quite a while. This is the mother plant. Well, I just started over. It's the mother plant of what the pop quiz winner is going to get. I can't remember. This is Anna Cajoni. It's also 3 feet tall. These are plants that you didn't realize could get so big, but are this big. Because when I first grew this thing in a peat-based soil, it was a little tiny thing, half stunted, barely grew at all. I had to start it over a number of times, but as soon as it went into the coconut husk, you can see it's so happy. It just screams happiness. That's Hoya benchii. You can see that the leaves are highly sun stressed from too much light. The tent is probably overlit, but I need the lights, this many lights, just to keep a reasonable amount of heat in here. But I think it's probably doing okay. In the back, this is like this giant Carmelia. It grows so fast I can barely keep it strapped down. This is a platycollis, which is finally, it's all covered in buds, but I don't think I currently have any flowers on it. There's my other stenophylla. I did 2 hanging baskets worth. It's just growing everywhere. These are some of the Divoensis cuttings that I'm rooting. I'll be selling them on eBay. I got a couple different clones here of Hoya serpens. This one I flowered, and this one over here I have not flowered. But they're pretty healthy plants. I'm hoping that... See, they're never going to flower in here, probably because that's one of those that the day length has to be increasing in order to bring it into bloom. So I would have to fool with the lights in here and increase the day length, I think, to bring that one into bud. This is Hoya oblong acutifolia. The one that has the blooms that are the stinkiest. No flowers on it right now, though. Hoya inflata hasn't been out of bloom or bud in many, many, many months. My Hoya McGillray, which is the Hoya that really got me super hooked on Hoyas, because I've had it. I bought the original plant from some woman on eBay about 18 years ago, I think, and I bought it and I flowered it, and people were so impressed. I think that's what got me so hooked on Hoyas. So this plant here is it's only about 9 months old, and it's already, you can see here, it's budding up. I haven't flowered this in a while, so I'm very excited to have the McGillray flowers again. Once again, this is the prize. One of these is the prize for the pop quiz winner. Here, this is new to me. Supposedly nearly impossible to flower. Micro dwarf. The leaves almost look Discidia-like. Gunding gating. This is species Maynam. It's like Finlay-Zoni type Hoya, but it has pubescent leaves. This is a Hoya. This is that Rindu rafflesia or something. This is new to me. This is the one. It's budding up now again. This is the one I lost the buds on, but it's budding up again. So I'm hopeful this will be a first-time bloomer for me. Down here, I have this little microphylla. I just flowered that. I did a video on it. It seems to really like the cool temperatures in here. Yeah, this is only about 8 months old. And it's budding up again. I have 4 buds on it, and another peduncle just came on. Oh, and this is still blooming from last week. I was very surprised. Verstigii, they got to be on their way out. But these have been here a week. But no, I'm happy those stuck around. And then this is species frogfoot. I don't know if you can see that. You probably can't see it, but it's just dripping nectar. You can see the buds and the flowers, but every single node has got buds and flowers on it. It's a tremendous bloomer. You can't stop it from blooming. This is just a couple flowers left on this, but this is Buntalkensis. Usually there's usually about 8 flowers on there, but this is only 2 that are remaining. Looks like it's budding up again right on after these flowers. New buds are coming right behind it. One of the few times that Divuensis isn't actually flowering, but there's like tons of buds that are coming. You can see right there. This is an Onychoides, which is flowered pretty much nonstop throughout the winter. It's got another batch of buds that are coming. You can see right there. Here's the Imperialis that just opened its flowers. I don't know if I can get that up so you can see. But that's after 8 months. And you can see my system works pretty well. This is I can never Avellini, that's it. There's a bunch of buds on there. That plant flowers like a lot, almost continuously. This is a Hoya that I think if I can ever get it to flower, I'm going to retire from the Hoya game. It's a Medinophilia. I've had horrible luck with this plant, but this is the best specimen I've ever had. I have to water it twice a week. So I just have my fingers crossed because I've seen this one die so quickly. So every node gets a peduncle, but they just don't bud up. These things here, Hoya Thompsonii, it's been blooming for months and months. It just doesn't know what time of the year it is. It's only supposed to flower in the fall, but flowers all the time. I just flowered this one for the first time over here, but the flowers are so insignificant that I can't really even show them to you. It's Hoya Medusa. And then, of course, undulata, which is often in flower, but it's not now. This is the last plant in the McGillray group that I have left to flower. It's a Little Leanna. I just got this plant about 8 months ago from a little cutting, so I'll be happy when I flowered that. I'm certain I'll be successful because those plants in that group really seem to like me. This was Calycina stargazer. It's budding up again all over the place. It just flowered, but the flowers they're gone by. These flowers have hung on. This is the new Hoya Griffithii that I flowered. This one has like green flowers, yellow green flowers. It comes from Laos. This is the third different clone of this that I've been able to flower, and the scent is very, very powerful on that. And I think that is a tour. I think that's what I've got to show in the tents. So,
yeah, very nice, Doug.
So, yep, that's the tents. That's where I do most of my growing. It's very high humidity. Daytime humidity is probably around 80%. At night, it's closer to 100% when it's all zipped up. But now I don't put water in any of these trays, and it really makes no difference. I wish I would have known that so long ago. I don't use humidifiers either. It's just the plants that keep the humidity up, along with the moisture that's in the substrate, the coconut husk. That provides all the humidity that you need.
Do you keep different temperature or light condition in different tents depending on the particular species, or they are just they are all similar?
They're all similar. I mean, in the past, certain tents used to get a little warmer than other tents, and I would try to keep the species I thought needed the most heat in the warmer tents. But now they're all kind of like the same. I have cut back. This is my overflow tent over here. This is a 4x4 tent. I don't currently have anything in here, but I use this tent when I want to change the day length on something. And it was a little warmer because there was a bigger grow light in here, but I haven't used it this year. I would like to get these two tents down to one tent